Okay, well, I guess we might as well begin. Hey, and if anyone else wants to join in, they can come along. So, once again, we are here talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, last week we started with covering the introduction and the first chapter, which was the fundamentals, why tiny changes make a big difference, which included 3 chapters: the surprising power of atomic habits, 2, how your habits shape your identity and vice versa, and 3, how to build better habits in 4 simple steps, which were, who can remember what those 4 simple steps were?
Read the book.
It was Q.
Q, cover.
Craving.
Here we go.
Response, reward.
Yes. There was 4 though, wasn't there?
Yeah. Q, craving, response,
That's
reward.
right. Q, craving. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say craving. Q, craving, response, reward. Yeah, so making it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And the converse to that, making it, if you want to break a bad habit, making it invisible, making it unattractive, making it difficult, and making it unsatisfying. So that was the first chapter, the fundamentals. And now we come on to the next 4 chapters. The first law, make it obvious. Did you guys have a chance to read that?
Listen to it. Yeah.
Listen to it on audio? Me too. I listened to the whole book again yesterday while I was cleaning. So the thing, I have to go back to the book to go, hang on, which bits am I supposed to have heard? Because I've heard the whole book, you know, so I'm trying to reference just the relevant parts. But so the first law, making it obvious. Well, it started with chapter 4, the man who didn't look right. Can we remember what that was about? Well,
Yeah.
there was the guy who was not looking well, and the paramedic, just in casual conversation, said to him, you know, are you okay? You don't look too good. And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. What are you on about? And then so she suggests that he goes to straight to the hospital, because she's a paramedic, used to spotting the signs of someone who's about to have a heart attack. Was it a heart attack? It was, yes. And so he had life-saving surgery, and basically her alertness saved his life. And yet there was no real way that, in a sense, that she could have known, but just through sheer experience. It reminded me of Malcolm Gladwell's book, the Tipping Point, or where he came up with the 10,000 hour rule. You know, that if you do anything for 10,000 hours, you become an expert. And unwittingly, you just have so much experience to fall back on that you spot somebody new wouldn't spot. Here comes Jane, so we'll just let her in. And then he said, I thought this was a fascinating one, the military analysts, where they can identify a blip on a radar screen, which to all intents and purposes are exactly the same as, you know, the enemy aircraft is exactly the same as their own friendly aircraft, and yet they can tell the difference on the radar screen. It's quite incredible. So good morning, Jane. Welcome to the call.
Great to be here.
So we're just covering, we're going through chapter 4, the man who didn't look right.
Oh, yeah.
Read that?
I did.
Good, good. Okay, so, he talks about museum curators being able to tell the difference between works of art and fake, and even hairdressers knowing whether a client is pregnant just on the feel of her hair. So incredible. They're just the things that people pick up purely through practice. And that I've just mentioned Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point, the 10,000 hour rule. So he says, with enough practice, I've highlighted this in orange, people. With enough practice, you can pick up on the cues that predict certain outcomes without consciously thinking about it. Automatically, your brain encodes the lessons learned through experience. So sometimes you don't even know yourself why you're noticing it, but you just are, because you're so good at whatever it is that we're talking about. And I love this quote. He ends this paragraph with, "You are much more than your conscious self." So we're tapping into other parts of our, whether you might call it intuition or our energy or our awareness, perhaps even our subconscious. noticings of things. So then he goes on to talk about the brain and how powerful it is, and how you can, like, there's so much going on all the time, just keeping you alive. You don't have to think about breathing. You don't have to think about eating. Your body reminds you if you're hungry. It lets you know if you're cold, lets you know if you're in pain and you need to do something about it. All that's going on without you having to give it any thought. But it says here, the psychologist Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So we are a product of our behavior patterns, which have come from our beliefs, and very often we don't notice that we just resort to autopilot. How often have you been, I know I do this quite a lot when I'm absent-minded, is driving down the road to go somewhere, and you're going somewhere different, but you find yourself going down the old familiar road because you always go that way, and you realize you've missed the turn because you weren't paying attention. And if I'm listening to an audio tape or something, it's quite easy for me to get engrossed in that, and I'm just sort of cruising along an autopilot and go, oh Dan, I'm supposed to turn back there, I'm on the wrong way now. Sometimes it's a good thing though, because it means I get to drive down roads I wouldn't necessarily drive down, because I'll have to take a different route to get back on track again. So that can be quite funny. Like, I know somebody who used to deliberately drive a different way each time he went somewhere, so that he got to see different roads and different buildings and see what's going on in different parts of the city and so on. So that was, he made an intuitive, a conscious effort to ignore his autopilot. Then he'd spent quite a bit of time in the audiobook anyway, talking, well, in both the audio and the written book, of course, but it seemed longer on the audiobook, talking about this pointing and calling that they do in Japanese trains. Did you find that fascinating? I did. I like, especially when they saved that lady who was going to get caught in a bullet train with her arm through the window and was about to get whisked off at 200 miles an hour, and the conductor saw it and stopped the train. They're pointing and calling. So I sometimes, there was a saying I used to have going out the front door was spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. Make sure you've got everything you're supposed to have with you before you leave the house. So, one of which you definitely don't want to go out without. Right. So he talks about making lists of the things that you do habitually. Did anyone do that, by the way, just out of curiosity? No.
No, thought it was
I
a really
did.
good idea though.
You did?
I did.
Oh, and what did you find? Do share.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see which. Hold on just a second. I wrote it in the book. Well, okay, are you talking about the list of habits?
Well, he has a list there, like things like wake up, brush your teeth, or get out of bed, obviously. And then he was talking about putting a value, either like a plus or a minus or an equals next to them. So you can determine whether they're good habits that are supporting the way you want to live your life, or whether they're a habit you think perhaps I should get rid of that one or change it.
Well, what I did is I had after I have one current habit, I'm going to replace it with a new habit. That's what I did?
Yeah, good.
You're referring to?
Yes. Did you find
Okay.
anything revelatory there that you are willing to share?
Yes, I am. Actually, I am. And I thought about this too, because I said, well, some of the habits that we have, one that I'm not ashamed of, but I'm not like proud of. And I swear, I think it's the artist in me, the creative person in me, that I am so conscious of colors, fabrics, matching, balance, all that kind of, it's just been my thing my whole life, right? Well, what does that translate to? it translates to that Jane likes to change out her draperies once a year, and I like to go shopping, and so on and so on. But then I started to notice that not only was, yes, my closet seemed to be getting smaller, which it wasn't. It was just that I had too many things in it. I was spending too much money. So, and I don't know that this is a great thing, but it's a good thing. I changed it up. I replaced it with, I go to consignment stores now instead of Macy's and nicer, higher end stores.
So noticing that habit's now made you save money.
It did, because it was the so-called lesser of two evils, which they're both evil, so to speak, right? If you're saying something's evil and they're both evil, well, damn. Yeah, so I'll tell you, it worked up here for me because I felt like I wasn't being frivolous with money. I was simply being frivolous with almost being superficial. Like, I like to wear these jeans with that top. It's like, who cares? I do.
Okay, so there's a counter argument on that one, because Joe's just been listening to the audiobook by Louise Hay, and she's talking about how you should spend your money on things that enrich your life and make you feel better and so on, which is
right.
Sounds like what you were doing. So it might not be a waste of money if it was making you feel good and you were more comfortable with your home, with your surroundings, or you feel better going out wearing coordinated outfits compared to going out sort of feeling like you're scruffy or feeling like got a mismatch.
Right. Right.
So in that sense, it can be good for your soul and good for you to maintain that. Joe's modeling something in the background there to show me.
Well, tell her to come on over and tell her I said thank you for that.
So come and show yourself when you get a moment.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, and I love the necklace. Oh, and I love the design on that. Oh my goodness. How about shoes? And do you have shoes?
What we call the mung bean capital of Western Australia. So I've got my crystals on and my wizard coat, and
I love it, darling.
And you know who made me buy this necklace and this jacket?
He did? Yay! Yay, Tony!
And I feel amazing.
See, ex-retail manager, I used to do, at one stage, I used to look after the women's fashion section in Big W, and I have to put up the displays mounted up on the side walls, with the color coordinated outfits and so on. So I'm quite good at that. So I quite often find Joe, oh, you should try this on, and what woman wouldn't love that, having a husband that actually is volunteer?
Oh my God. Can you clone yourself?
So yeah, there's a habit. Crystal shops. We go into crystal shops and we're both fascinated by crystals, and
me too.
Burgeoning collection of those.
Yeah, you too, Courtney. Oh my God, yes.
I like being with this one. Yeah.
What have you got there? Is it quartz?
It's a rose quartz. Yeah.
Yeah. Rose quartz, the love stone. Yeah. I
love it too.
So okay, so I'll come back to that one. You reminded me of something. I will come on back to habit stacking in a moment, because I know it's in one of the next chapters. So asking yourself, does this behavior help me become the type of person I wish to be? This is, I thought, was a very interesting comment. Does this habit cast a vote for us, for or against my desired identity? So he mentions that a few times, that when you repeat something, you are casting a vote in favor of a certain behavior or a certain progress towards being or becoming something. So, and you're either casting a vote for or against how you want to be. So habits that reinforce your desired identity are usually good. Habits that conflict with your desired identity are usually bad. Always wary about labeling things good or bad, because, you know, sometimes hindsight might change that.
Right.
But trying pointing and calling in your own life. And he says, say out loud the action that you're thinking of taking and what the outcome will be. So there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself, is there? Some people in the past might have labeled you crazy. Nowadays, we're so used to seeing people walking down the road with talking on an earpiece or something that we think, oh, it must be on the phone. But if you're actually talking to yourself out loud and having a conversation, I love this when he says the conversation. Actually, was listening to another book as well, which was it Your Untethered Soul or something like that.
Yes.
Talking that same thing about having a conversation going on in your head all the time. You know, like I was just describing, I might have been on autopilot and taken the wrong road, and I'll be saying to myself, oh, you're an idiot, Tony, you just missed your turn off, so pay more attention to yourself. And you're having that kind of conversation going on. You find you're actually having both sides of the conversation in your head, like one side's having a go at you and the other side going, well, hang on a minute, you know, I was looking at something else there, and it's not my fault. You actually could take all the thoughts that are in your head and put them up on a screen or something, so other people could see them. They'd think you were crazy, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but then they'd say, oh no, he's just like me.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
You don't know what I think.
Someone crazier than me.
Okay. Yeah, I talk quite a lot in my sleep as well. Have some very interesting conversations. So hearing your bad habits spoken aloud makes the consequences seem more real. That was an interesting one where he talks about if you want to, say, for instance, cut back on junk food, but you notice yourself grabbing another cookie, say out loud, I'm about to eat this cookie, but I don't need it. Eating it will cause me to gain weight and hurt my health. Imagine if you said that to yourself out loud every time you want to eat something you know you shouldn't be eating. Powerful stuff, hey?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was that chapter started with the man who didn't look right, and he talked about habit scorecards and pointing and calling, becoming aware of your habits. Chapter 5 then was the best way to start a new habit. So he talks there, and I know this was a topic we were on yesterday, Stan, is when you set a goal to do something, is not just setting the goal, but actually being specific about what you're going to do when you're going to do it. So if your desire is to go to the gym, for example, which mine is not, but if it was, and I was to say, tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I will be going to the gym, and you write it in your diary, calendar, whatever reminder method you use, and that you commit to it. So it's about making the strength of the commitment. And I always found if I wanted to exercise, like for instance, when I'm back in the days when I used to go running, I'd try to go running with a buddy so that we'd make the appointment to go running together. Then either of us didn't want to let the other one down. So we'd both turn up. So easy to let yourself down, isn't it? Or give yourself an excuse because I don't really feel like it today. I can't be bothered. I don't know if it was this chapter, but somewhere in the book he said, we're all human. We all can miss doing something one day, but if we let it slide and we carry on and not do it the second day, we're actually starting a new habit, which is to not do the thing that we want to do.
Yeah, practicing avoidance.
Something to be aware of there. So yes, this was the next bit was, broadly speaking, the format for creating an implementation intention is that when situation X arises, I will perform response Y. So when you make a specific plan, that, for example, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. He talked about being specific, like, for instance, He was going to do 10 push-ups when he finished work, but finishing work wasn't really specific enough. It was too vague. Does that mean when he's left the office or he's walked through to the lounge room, or when's he going to do the 10 push-ups? So then he changed it to, as I close my laptop,
Mm-hmm.
I will do 10 push-ups right there and then on the office floor, so that he had a direct connection between X and Y. As one thing finished, he went on to do the next thing. So being specific about your times, being specific about how the sequence of them, and then this habit stacking. So very powerful, a simple plan to overhaul your habits. Now this was interesting, could be quite like you were just describing, Jane, the Dittoro effect. Dittoro, it became called the Dittoro effect, which states that obtaining a new possession often creates a spiral of consumption that leads to additional purchases. So you buy yourself a new skirt and you go, oh, I better get the top to go with it. Oh, hang on, I need some shoes as well. Actually, no, I need some new jewelry to go with that too. Otherwise it's all not going to match. Well, actually, really, I should get some new glasses that are the same color as that as well. And probably should get my hair done too. You know, it's like it could go on from one to the other, couldn't it? Quite easily. I must admit, I tend to shop that way because I'm a bloke and I very rarely get time to go shopping. If I'm in the frame of mind to go shopping, I kind of go, well, I might as well get several items all at once while I'm here, because it makes sense time-wise for me. Do you do that, Stan? You go in and say, I'm just going to go in and buy a pair of trousers and that's all, and I'm coming out of the shop.
It depends, because sometimes I go shopping for a pair of trousers and that's what I'm buying.
Yeah. You're very disciplined, I've noticed, though, you generally.
Well, it depends, because sometimes I could go shopping and go, yeah, I need a shirt and a pair of pants, and that's a shiny thing. I'll have that too. And 5 chocolate bars and, you know, whatever.
Good. Me. I'm so glad. Good on you, Stan. Well, I know women do that because women love shopping, don't you? So you would. How often would you just buy the one thing and walk out with that one thing? It's like for a bloke as well, going into somewhere like Bunnings. It's almost impossible to go into a Bunnings store and not come out with a couple of things that you didn't know you couldn't live without until you went into the store.
That's true.
Yeah.
And what's Bunny's like?
Bunnings is a hardware store in Western Australia that you can.
Oh.
It's got everything. It's got, you know, for outdoor furniture, plants, plumbing, electrical, tools, gadgets of all sorts. You know, it's got you even at the checkout. You know, oh, better get some batteries while I'm here, and all the little stuff they put around the checkout area. And I'm an ex-retailer, so I used to do that kind of trick stuff. You know.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
You like the end cap displays, for instance. If you have the cuddly toy, you've got to have the battery to go with it to make the toy speak or whatever, you know. So it makes sense that you add those things next to them, but it's the impulse buy is that, oh, while I'm here, I'm getting that, I might as well get this as well. So we were masters of psychology in that, in trying to convince people that they needed all these extra things to go with the original thing that they wanted to buy. The one I've always found very curious is Aldi. We have Aldi stores here, and they have a middle section of their store that is, it's totally unrelated stuff next to each other.
Absolutely.
Yes, I've got a caravan cover. I just need a caravan now.
You got a caravan cover and then a colouring in book or something, and then like a record player or something. Like, you're like, what?
I know. Yeah.
It messes with your head because it's like, that's got nothing to do with that. Why is that there? So you noticed it. Very clever. So the habit stacking formula is, after I do this current habit, I will do this new habit. So that's where you've got an existing habit that you're already using, and then you're finding that the new habit you want to implement, you tack it on to the habit that's already there, that's already formed. So for instance, if you want to exercise, after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. You know you're going to take off your work shoes. You want to feel comfortable when you come in through the front door. I'm taking my shoes off, instead of just leaving it at that and then sitting down on the couch and then go, oh, I can't be bothered to go exercising now. If you wanted to go exercising, you'd go straight into changing into your workout clothes, and then you're halfway there, aren't you? you've already put on the running shoes or whatever it is that you need to go to do the exercise. Marriage. After I get into bed at night, I will give my partner a kiss. Oh, that's so the key is to tie your desired behavior into something that you already do each day. So what, I mean, James Clear, I think in this book generally is a master of noticing and giving you tips that actually really work on how to implement new habits or how to ditch ones that you don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
It does work, this stuff. It really does. Exercise. I'm pretty sure Stan does this one. I know we've talked about it. When I see a set of stairs, I will take them instead of using the elevator. I know Stan likes to park as far away from things as he can in the car park, don't you, Stan?
Yep, you always get a car park.
So that he has to walk across the car park and get his steps in. Whereas most people park as close as they can to where it is they're trying to get to.
And then proceed to have their car dented.
Yeah.
It also depends on what you're buying, Tony. Because if you know you're going in for like 3 pairs of trousers and 19 shoes and stuff, you're like, well, I don't want to carry that across the car park.
Well, so you just get a trolley or a team of slaves to go with you. Okay, social skills. Here's a good one. When I walk into a party, I will introduce myself to someone I don't know yet. Good way of networking, isn't it? Making a conscious, especially if you're a shy person, making a conscious effort to go, I'm going to make this a habit. When I go in, I'm going to find somebody I don't know and I'm going to go over and introduce myself. And the funny thing about that is that the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit, and then it becomes easy. You don't even think about it anymore. You don't get time to get that, oh, you know, should I do that? I'm a bit of a shy person, you know, should I go and talk to that person?
Can I just want to interject something that I have, a habit that I have created for myself that makes me exceedingly comfortable when I could go anywhere in life. If they speak English, I'm good. And it's this. Of course, there's, yes, you can talk about the weather, but I don't normally do that. But what I will do is, if I'm going to a party or some kind of an event, and I will make it a point to speak to someone who is a stranger, and I will always say, do you happen to know so-and-so, maybe the speaker? Have you seen the speaker before, or whatever for the event? Or if it's a wedding, how long have you been friends with John and Mary? And then this is like my go-to habit. And I do it for 2 different reasons. One, because I'm truly interested, and the other because I think it kind of like it elongates a conversation, and you can learn something about someone. And it's this. If it's going into spring and summer, I'll say, so do you have summer plans for a vacation? And if it's going into fall and winter, I will say, do you look forward to going away and getting out of the cold in the winter? And if, where do you go? So that's like my go-to. And you just can find out so much about people, and it's so interesting, in my opinion. So
that's very good, Jane. What have you done since COVID lockdowns came in and you can't go anywhere?
Have you joined the vault yet?
Well done. Good comeback. That's very good. Here's actually, I'm going to try that one myself. Here's another good one is mood, because I actually remember implementing this with my staff when I had a tourism business. Is I would instruct them to do this. When the phone rings, I will take 1 deep breath and smile before answering. Now that's when you're in a business where that first impression really matters. You want people to feel welcome, and so because you could, you picture it, you're in the reception area, you're busy, you're doing stuff, you're dealing with 10 different customers, and you're just totally distracted. The phone rings. Oh, bloody phone, I got to answer the phone now. It's so easy to answer the phone in that state of mind where you're busy and distracted and all over the place. Instead, just pausing for a second, putting a smile on your face. Good morning, so-and-so here, how can I help you? It just immediately changes the whole tone of the call for the other person on the other end. And I actually had people say, we came and stayed at your place because of the way your staff answered the phone. Because they would ring up from the airport, and they'd ring around several different backpacker hostels to decide which one they were going to stay at. And they said ours sounded the friendliest on the phone straight away. So it was actually a marketing tool that worked, made a difference. Here's another good one, and especially for those ladies who like to leave handbags behind and phones on the table and so on. I'm picking on the ladies a bit today, aren't I?
You really are.
When I leave a public place, I will put a table and chairs to make sure I don't leave anything behind. So that's only because my wife has recently, occasionally at our local pub that we go to, has occasionally, left things behind, thinking, oh, I forgot I left my bag on the chair or something like that. There may have been wine involved in that situation.
Of course.
The memory situation, but it's a good tip to get into. I do that, like, especially when I stay in hotels, always do a last room check, walk around and check, especially things like, did you leave your phone charger plugged in? Do you know how many phone chargers we used to find at the backpackers that people had forgotten that they plugged in and didn't do the room check before they left? Loads of them. So yeah. So habit stacking works best when the cue is highly specific and immediately actionable. So you want it to be something that, as I do this, I can then immediately do that. Very, very powerful stuff. So that's where he used the example about doing these push-ups. Would you do push-ups before you ate lunch or after you ate lunch, or when would you do them? And then he ended up with, as I close my laptop, I'll immediately do the push-ups. Pretty smart, that one. All right, chapter 6. So we've got chapter 6 and chapter 7. So chapter 6, motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. So this was where he gave quite a lengthy example about the hospital cafeteria, where the water was in not a very good place, and so people didn't tend to drink enough of it. And they reorganized the layout of the store. And as I was just saying before, in retail management, they're masters of doing that. Reorganize things so that your eye is drawn to the thing. They have whole. When I worked in retail, I've worked for Big W and Target, and a couple others as well, supermarkets originally, and then even a toy supermarket. So you have things like Target was very regimented. Whatever they displayed, it was always lightest to darkest and cheapest to dearest, on going horizontally across the shelf. But if you wanted to feature something really strong, of course, dearest is because most of us read from left to right, so your eye goes across to the right and focuses on the most expensive item. You're trying to upsell people, and then on your end caps, you'd have these little sidebar attachments, where you'd attach the batteries or some little gift idea that you think, oh, that's fun, need one of those, great idea. So yeah, that really is used a lot by retail companies to trigger you. One this is what I was going to bring up as an example. One I'm working on in myself is you go into BP, onto the service station here, and you go to pay for your fuel, and they do this, oh, while you're here, would you like to buy 2 chocolate bars and you'll get 7 cents a litre or something off your fuel as well. And I do tend to have a bit of a sweet tooth, but I have resisted that one, particularly lately, where I've got myself into a habit of not doing that. But it's so easy. You do it a couple of times, suddenly you start a new habit. And I caught myself doing that, went, I don't need this. Why am I buying it? Because they've set it up that way that you feel almost stupid to not take up the offer because it's going to discount my petrol. So might as well.
And plus, we always want to seem as being agreeable.
Oh yeah, and the staff are trained to remind you of that too. Oh, wouldn't you like to get to any two of those items there? And there's other things there. There's drinks and sandwiches and all sorts of stuff as well. You got any two of those items that'll give you a discount on your petrol. You know, save you some money. It's not saving you money at all because you're spending extra that you didn't intend to spend. It is if you were going to buy those items anyway, but not if you're buying them as well. So that's called suggestion impulse buying. There we go. That's in here. This was interesting where he talked about the fact that we're tuned in to pick up everything in our environment around us. We notice it. The human brain is just incredible. All it says it has about 11 million sensory receptors, and approximately 10 million of those are dedicated to sight. So when we walk into a room, we notice everything, but we may not notice it on a conscious level, but our brain has picked it up. And that's why quite often, you know, if they want to retrieve people's memories about a crime scene, for instance, they'll use hypnosis to get people to go back, because in a hypnotic state, they can ask them, you know, what was up to your left on the shelf in the corner of the room, which you wouldn't remember consciously, but in your subconscious mind, you've picked that up, and they can retrieve bits of information like that from your subconscious mind. I quite often do because when we're training people in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we would quite often do this exercise where you'd say to people, just be quiet for a moment. So I've got a hair in my mouth. Lucky it wasn't a rabbit. Here's an old saying. You're sitting there. You're sitting there and you just get people to be quiet, and you go, can you hear the birds tweeting outside? Which you can. You could hear them before, but you weren't aware. You'd filtered them out because you're focused on what's going on in the room. But your brain is aware of it. You've gone, oh, this is important for me to focus on. There's all this other stuff going on. I can hear traffic noise out. There's a kid playing around this. There's a ball bouncing in the street. There's a dog barking next door, or someone started up the lawnmower down the road. You can hear all that, but you filter it out because you're focused on what you want to focus on. But it doesn't mean you didn't notice it. You didn't notice it on a conscious level until someone goes, can you hear that lawnmower down the road? Oh yeah, I can. So the brain is very, very powerful. So designing your environment for success. So this is about noticing that every habit is initiated by a cue. So we're likely to notice cues that stand out. So we go to the example of it's and I'm a guitarist, so I agree with him on this one. It's easy not to practice the guitar when it's tucked away in the closet. You know, so we've actually sort of agreed it's good to have my guitar out in the open. It's easy not to read a book when the bookshelf's in the corner of the guest room. I've got books everywhere. You might notice that. So, but now I've got Joe into reading books as well. So yes. Good. It's easy not to take your vitamins when they are out of sight in the pantry. So if you want to do something, you make it clear and obvious. One trick we use quite a lot is if you need to remember to take something with you when you go out in the car, is leave it right next to the front door. So you've got to walk past it to get out through the front door, so you won't forget it unless of course someone moves it. One I did yesterday, I put my sunglasses down. I was holding a meeting and I thought I might miss those and forget them, so I put my car keys next to the sunglasses because I can't leave if I don't have the car keys. So I've got to take the sunglasses with me at the same time. So remembering to set up your environment in a way that it's going to work with you. I love this example he gave about the men's urinals, about putting the butterfly on the urinals so that the guys would all hit the target. And how it significantly reduced spillage, as he called it. They said someone used to put a ping pong ball or something in the toilet, and
I did that. That was quite a. You had to buy 6 at once. So I bought 6 and put one in the toilet. And then I had these ping pong balls and we were having a party and the little kids were coming. Thought, oh, cool. Have a ping pong ball. You can play with that. And then the one in the toilet went missing. The whole thing. No more ping pong ball.
The stories, the gems that come out in these mastermind calls that you could miss out
Exactly.
on. The little secrets that are revealed.
That's right.
Okay. So, yeah, this is a good one too. If you want to drink more water, fill up a few water bottles each morning and place them in common locations around the house, or have a water bottle with you at all times so that you're reminded to drink some. Anyone got any cues like that they use apart from the ping pong ball in the toilet? Anyone got anything else that they've found is useful?
No, but I think it's interesting that all too often a exercise bike turns into a clothes catcher.
Yes, I had one of those once that did exactly.
Yeah.
One of those the striding machines, or what do you call it, treadmill.
Right. Right.
No, it was more, you could use it as a treadmill, but you could also sit on it and use it as a bike. It was one of those sort of multi things.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it just gathered a lot of dust and ended up got rid of.
Right.
The intention was there right at the beginning, but yeah, it's like, no. I
like,
love the story he told where this guy wanted to get himself fit, but he also loved watching Netflix. So he set up his treadmill so that if he didn't reach a certain speed, it automatically cut off Netflix. But that was brilliant. Dad, he wanted to watch his program. He had to keep up the work rate.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yep.
Good idea.
So yeah, be the designer of your world and not merely the consumer of it. So yes, he says our behavior is not defined by the objects in the environment, but by our relationship to them. So then he talked about making, like if you work from home, this is a good one, having specific areas. Like if you've got a computer, you always do your work at that computer, but if you want to play on the internet or surf, social media, do it on your tablet or on your phone, or do it in it. So if you're in a small area and you can't physically have like a separate office or a separate work environment to your play environment, then you might allocate a specific chair that you go and sit in to do certain things. Like I've got my reading chair that I'll go and sit in and do my reading at, and I've got lights set up so because I have to have plenty of light when I'm reading. Eyesight's starting to go. So it puts you in that frame of mind to do that thing. And so otherwise it's so easy if you work from home, you go on the computer to do some work, and then something pops up, and I'll just check Facebook, and then half an hour goes by, you wished everyone happy birthday, and you've done all the other things that you want to do. And then you go, hang on, what was I doing again before I started all that? So easy to lose track. Or the one that's quite bad from productivity point of view is if you have your emails pop up, because it's like, oh, there's an email, I better go and answer that. And then you don't finish working on what the thing was that you were trying to work on. So especially in a business sense, if you've got to get some specific work done or a document that you're working on and you want to complete it without distraction, leave the phone in the other room or turn it on silent or put it on do not disturb. Turn off the email pop-up reminders so you can get the thing done that you want to do. And then, maybe set a time at 11 o'clock, I'll go and check those emails. Or obviously it depends on people's businesses. There's certain businesses where they need to be on call and they can't miss that call. So, you have to put that disclaimer in. There's certain situations where it practically can't work, but for most people it usually can. If you answer the email now or in 20 minutes time, it's not going to make any difference, but it will mean that you can get the job done that you're trying to do.
I just have to interject that, and I think this is part of being born a baby boomer. I think those of us who are that remember a time when we weren't slaves to our phone or a computer or an email, you know, and so on. And so,
Not at all. You're just making that up. That's
oh my goodness.
Well, never existed.
Yeah, it did. It wasn't as fun. Well, I don't know. You know, who could say? But one of the things I find, it brings out the rebelliousness in me that I'll be damned if I am going to let a phone or an email or a computer or it goes against my grain because I don't want to be controlled. You know, if I had a bumper sticker made up, it would be something like "Don't fence me in," or, you know, that type of thing. That's part of my personality. So when I see people out to dinner and they have their phones, or people, they're all at the same table at the family table, and they're still looking at their phones or whatever, right? It's I don't know, it's a little maddening for me because it just feels way too controlling.
Do you know, it's a great example you've raised there. I remember as soon as you said that, it flashed into my mind. We were in, of all places, the Maldives. We went there for our honeymoon. We were on a scuba diving holiday. Mm-hmm. And we found this little restaurant. There was only a few restaurants on the island. We found this lovely little restaurant. We walked in and there was, I think it was about 10 guys were all sat around, all local Maldivian guys, indigenous guys, sat around this table. Every single one of them was on their phone. And I watched for ages. They weren't talking to each other at all. They were all just sitting there engrossed, but they were all together. They had gone there to go and eat together, and not one of them was talking to the other because they were all on their phone, looking at their phone. And I just thought it was hilarious because it doesn't matter where it is in the world now. It's happening everywhere. And that was one of the things I particularly was sad about with the backpackers when I used to have the hostel. In the early days, I started in 1996. Phones weren't really a thing back then. We used to have a payphone in the dining room, and you know, the phone would ring, and somebody would go, "Is John? Anyone seen John? It's his mum from England." You know, on the payphone. By the end of it, everyone's sitting there with their devices in front of them. So you lost that communication a lot of the time. You know, you lost that that free flowing exchange of ideas and just, you know, the fun times. A lot of it got diluted by this emergence. But of course there are good things that come with that too. You know, it means they can be more connected to their family across the world, or you can send an image of you doing something immediately. They can be there with you. And you know, in a COVID disconnected world, that's been a saving grace really, has been people still able to communicate. And as we are now, Coralie in New Zealand, Jane in New York, and we're here in Perth in Western Australia. I mean, you can't get much farther away than those locations, really.
I know. It's
marvelous. Now.
Wonderful.
But I have a habit of not using my phone when I'm talking to somebody.
Good on you, Stan.
Yeah.
Because it's all that. Well, the person on the other end of the phone is way more important than the person I'm talking to. Yes.
I'm very much aware of that too. It can come across. You can actually offend people quite easily if you.
And you're thinking, well, there is not, unless your wife's pregnant and she's calling you to say the baby's coming, or you're a doctor on call. There isn't any reason why you need to talk to the other person.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I watched an interview this morning with a psychologist who said, "You think that Facebook and Instagram have us wrapped around their finger? You haven't seen anything until you were to study the analytics of TikTok."
Yeah. Oh, you've gone silent there, Jane. We've lost your sound. You're frozen. Okay. We lost what you just said then. It was maybe an internet disturbance.
Yes, it was. Where did I leave off?
The analytics of TikTok.
Oh, yeah. That that TikTok could tell, you know, the powers that be at TikTok could tell you age groups, sex of people, and so on, and how long those people, what is it that you as an individual, what are you attracted to, what will keep you on longer watching. So therefore, oh, for this one, oh, she's on again, we're going to feed her ABC XYZ. And for Tony, it's going to be JFK and Elemental P. And, you know, it's like, what? Oh, that's pitiful. Just, you know, but welcome to our new world, right?
That's true. So this this could be the antidote for that. Is this in this chapter 7 that we're finishing off now? Is disciplined people like Stan are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. So one example for your phone usage, and I've heard this used by people, I've never actually seen it done, but I've heard of it, is you go out for dinner with a group of people, everyone puts their phone in the in a basket or something in the middle of the table, and no one touches their phone. If somebody touches their phone, they have to pay the whole bill. Now, if you do something like that, that would make that would immediately cut out all the phone usage, wouldn't it? So the point is that whatever that we're talking about is, rather than relying on your willpower not to do something, is set it up so that temptation's not there. So leave the phone in the other room if you want to not be disturbed by the phone. Or like the one that was mentioned was if you're prone to just watching mindless TV because it's there, is the TV in a cupboard. You remember the old days, the furniture used to be such that the TV had a cupboard door over the front of it, and he said even make it harder, like when you finish watching your program, unplug the TV, so that it's awkward that you've got to go around and plug it in, or even be able to have to say, I'm about to watch this program before you turn it on, rather than just watching whatever they serve up to you, you know?
Right.
So having those sorts of techniques in place means that you're not tempted. You're avoiding the onslaught of that temptation. Right. So that's, as you said, is an inverse of the first law of behavior change. Rather than making it obvious, you make it invisible, or you make it difficult to do. So yeah, that was how to create a good habit and how to create a bad habit. That's the end of the first law. We're at time too, so we've timed that pretty well. Has anyone got any closing thoughts or anything they want to implement specifically from what they've learned there? Any new habits you want to form? And we can give you some ideas on how to form it. No one's got any new habits to form.
Well, let me just say, I was really taken aback by the Vietnam War soldiers and how the whole thing with heroin and changing your environment.
Yes.
Whether it's, you know, you're an alcoholic and you go to a retreat and you're just fine, but then you get back in your environment, or, you know, people in prison, you know, the same old, and I just was like, wow, how about that? That's really remarkable.
Yeah, the problem with drugs is that you can find the drug dealer anywhere. You know, my son-in-law brought his brother over from the eastern states, relocated to WA to get away from his drug scene, and got him straight for a while, and they were running a business together until the brother realized that the guy next door, who happened to be with my daughter at the time, was a readily available supply of crack or whatever it was he wanted to get hold of, and as soon as he found that out, started getting it off this other guy, and then before you knew it, the brother was taking money out of the business bank account to go and pay for his drugs. So it's hard for somebody who's formed that habit and is that addicted to something to shake it. But changing that environment was a good thing. You know, it helped him for a while, but you've got to have more tools than that sometimes. So like, you know, that's where going to rehab or something you're completely away from it is powerful. But yeah,
And I guess I was happy to see that.
Oh, we've lost you again.
We've lost Jane there, frozen again. Stan, did you have anything anything you want to get rid of as a habit, or anything you want to wind up with?
Not really, I can't think of anything at the moment.
You're back, Jane?
Yes. I just was going to say that self-control being a short-term solution, not a long-term one.
Yes.
And I think people get down on themselves but I think he put it so well. He just put it in perspective for me, that it made me think about, okay, so what do I want to change? So it's got me thinking.
Yeah, and
Stay tuned.
the key thing, yeah, so we'll come back with some things for next week that we've thought of as a result of this. The key thing there was, you see, when people fail to implement something, it's usually not just that their willpower wasn't strong enough and we rely too much on willpower, it's that they didn't have an effective enough system to help to get it done. So that's the beauty of this book. The power in this book is it gives you some really good tools and techniques that you can use to make sure that you do implement new habits that you want to take on board, and you can also eliminate negative habits that you want to get rid of. You have a system that helps you to do it. So that's the power in this book, and we will go on to covering the second law next week, which is 3 chapters. So that's again a fairly reasonable lengthy thing. I think that's the way to approach it, isn't it? So we'll cover the second law next week, and I'll look forward to hearing whatever you've been able to pick up on or implement during this week. You can give us some feedback next week.
So is that 8 to 11? Chapters 8 to 11?
Yes, 8 to 10.
10.
8, 9, and 10.
Okay.
Which
Beautiful.
make it attractive. Okay, guys. Have a
Wonderful.
good week. We'll see you next week.
See you then. Bye, everybody.